Coming from arguably the most niche house ever, this legendary fragrance is incredibly mass appealing. Hello, welcome back to Seldomly Often. I'm Daniel. Today we're talking fragrances, and this is a practical review of Andy Tauer's L'Air du Desert Marocain. These reviews are for fragrances I have a lot of experience with, multiple wears in many situations, and are meant to give you a general idea of what it feels like to wear the fragrance. As per usual, despite doing a lot of research before buying fragrances, I really don't like to go into details about notes and accords, as I don't think it really reflects the feeling that the wearer gets when they put on the fragrance. So today I'm very excited to talk about Andy Tauer and his legendary fragrance, L'Air du Desert Marocain. Andy Tauer from Tauer Perfumes is a Swiss self-taught perfumer that sort of came out of nowhere. And he's an incredibly charming guy, and his house, even calling it a house is sort of a stretch, to me represents like the epitome of niche perfumery. Not because the fragrances are specifically complicated or daring or difficult to understand or difficult to accept, but it's because he, basically a one-man band, is driven by vision, thought, and intent with his perfumes. Each one of these, it has a signature style to it. They have a common DNA. They're completely built in-house. He literally bottles these at home and ships them out with handwritten notes, which is fantastic. I think it's the best thing ever. And they're just incredibly love-filled and soulful fragrances. I just find that upon smelling these, you can really tell that a lot of intent has been put into it. A lot of love has been put into it. And maybe I'm biased, maybe I really like the guy, maybe I was super overwhelmed by how the package arrived, but I absolutely just adore Andy Tauer and his perfumes. They just also kind of just fit my vibe. He has a range which is not super huge, but as I mentioned, they have a common DNA. There's something about them that really is recognizable and really works for me, by the way. I could talk about Andy Tauer and the way he constructs his perfumes, his vibe, and his enthusiasm forever. But you can get a taste of his personality on Instagram. Please follow him. He's amazing. But when you order this, as I mentioned, the presentation, everything from the cardboard box to the bottle is completely iconic, and it's such a unique experience. So everything comes in this very charming homemade packaging, and just the whole thing feels like it's literally put together in a basement. For better or for worse. Even when you get samples, they come into these like metal tins. They're beautiful and they're functional. There's like a little explanation card in it. And as I said, you always get, I've ordered from him twice, and you always get a handwritten note, and the stuff is beautifully packaged. Each fragrance is individually wrapped with just like wrapping paper and a ribbon. It's so cute. To me, this is worth so much that you open the package and you know that there's a person, like an actual person behind that, and not just some worker that doesn't care about what he's doing, you know? I really get behind brands that have such an incredibly strong identity, and I feel that Andy Tauer is probably one of the best brands with the best identity out there. I'm so into his fragrances that I really want to just collect them all. Props to him for everything he's done. So the presentation of the bottle itself, the packaging, I said, is amazing. Also the box this comes in, it's like this metal tin. It's amazing. And I'm gonna keep them all. But the bottle itself, they all come in these like 50 mLs with this like literally this like cut out, kind of like almost badly cut out little label behind here, just like attached. The bottles all look the same. What differentiates them is this like label here. This is, by the way, it's Andy Tauer's second perfume. This is number 2, L'Air du Desert Marocain. And the bottles themselves, if I have to be objective, they kind of feel cheap in a way. It's not the most luxurious bottle, let's be real. It's no Xerjoff, no Amouage, but they have this charming characteristic to them. Even the caps look like they're just these plastic caps that they kind of look like they might be like 3D printed or something. They're just like rough. The one thing that again, and maybe I'm super biased, so I'll overlook a lot of the stuff, but the atomizers are pretty freaking bad on these things. I mean, you gotta really pump it up a little bit, and they're just kind of like bad. Let's be real, they're just bad. But I mean, the guy's literally bottling this stuff in his basement. So if you think about it, I blasted Tom Ford's atomizers, and that's completely unforgivable. But him, it's okay. I mean, it's fine. These are great. Overall, 10 out of 10 for presentation, just because of the effort. I mean, this is amazing. And they're so unique. I just really like them. And by the way, just don't sleep on the soaps, because he offers also soaps, which are amazing. Since I've tried Andy Tauer's soaps, I've gone back to the soap bar. I've completely abandoned the soap bar in favor of like liquid soap, but he gifted me one of these on the first order, and I was like, this is amazing. I'll never go back to liquid soap. This is so high quality, and they're pretty cheap for how long they last. So again, props to Andy Tauer. I'm not sponsored, but hey, he deserves it. It's amazing. So I mentioned that this scent is legendary. It has incredibly high ratings on everywhere. Everyone is raving about this thing, and I think it's deserved. It's really deserved. It's unique, but at the same time, it's not too complex. It's not too unapproachable. It's relatively mass appealing in a way, because it's just so easy to wear. It's so inoffensive in a way. So anyone could just wear this. If you like Oriental, if you like Middle Eastern style perfumery, like spicy perfumery, this is amazing. I think this is a terrific wear. The story of this scent has been covered by basically everyone. And this is considered one of the more transportative and evocative scents out there. I partially agree. I think that people kind of like overdo it with the imagery that they get from this. As I mentioned, it's not too complex, and it should be praised for what it is. I mean, I do feel that Andy Tauer is very artistic in his construction. He is very artistic in his intent. But again, these are fairly wearable and easy to understand. They're not as complex as an Amouage. Let's be just real. And that's not a bad thing at all. Not always you want like uber complexity and layers upon layers. They're great. I love him. He's one of my favorite perfumers ever. But they have that place. They're not terribly complex, and I think that makes it even more approachable and easy to get into. And I think that that's one of the reasons why these have so much success. As I mentioned, this is an eau de toilette, so it wears very light. Despite it being an oriental fragrance with like spices and heavy spices at that, like cumin, it's a little bit culinary in a way. But so those heavy spices in this fragrance wear in an incredibly light way. And the spice, that culinary aspect, which can put some people off, it doesn't last long at all. It serves as the main transition. So I would define this as basically like a warm amber scent. This is like the warm amber scent. Because as soon as those culinary spices leave the picture, you get this warm feeling of just this warm wind that goes over sand dunes, basically sand and rocks. It kind of has a similar vibe to Amouage Jubilation. in that it really reminds me of the desert. It's such a dry feeling fragrance, and I'll get to that in a second because that's a super specific point of Andy Tauer. It's such a dry feeling fragrance that when you wear it, it is warm because it's ambery, but it doesn't feel like a layer of oil on your skin at all. This wears really light and has spectacular projection and sillage. You get this like bubble of this like warm wind around you. And again, it's not windy per se, but it really gives you the feeling of this like wind that's like caressing the dunes, and it's like carrying some of this like fine sand. And yes, sand doesn't really smell like this, but it really paints a picture. I feel that it paints a romantic picture of the desert, kind of like a desert evening when the sun is going down and the desert gets this like pinkish orange color. I think that this fragrance is a lot like orange and pink. And it kind of reminds me of like a cartoon version of a desert. It's what like the desert in Aladdin would smell like. So it's like the perfect desert from like a movie or like a Middle Eastern tale. So one of the reasons why this wears so light is Andy Tauer's signature, let's say, accord or compound or whatever you want to call it. He basically has this, as far as I've heard in other reviews, but he has this very dry, like ambergris accord, but it gives this powdery dryness. So it's not a powdery smell because it doesn't smell like powder, but it wears like powder. So imagine getting some like flour or some baby powder on you. It leaves the skin dry in a way that's like really smooth, like almost like dusty, but dusty not in an ugly sense, dusty in like an incredibly like dry, sparkly way. So despite it being a warm fragrance, again, it wears very fresh. It's very in a way refreshing. It's not aquatic, but it's so clean. It leaves you dry. It's like the furthest thing that I can associate to sweat, basically. And I love this about these fragrances. It's so unique. It's such a unique feature of Andy Tauer's L'Air du Desert Marocain, but also his other ones. It's this incredible feeling of like dry freshness and cleanness. It's very, very clean. There's not a hint of dirt in here. And the cumin usually is kind of like a dirty culinary scent, or like it often can resemble sweat. But in this case, it's like so clean, so dry. And this all brings to the fact that this is an insanely good summer fragrance. This could be worn in the fall and winter, but I feel that similarly to Amouage Jubilation, it would be a complete waste, because this fragrance makes you feel so dry and clean that wearing it in the summer works incredibly well with your body heat, and it just gets this thing pumping out. It just starts pumping this waves of ambery warmness that's like so sweet but not overpowering. It's not there's no vanilla or anything. It's just so sweet, and so there's like this incensey dryness, almost like a crumbly, imagine like an incense stick that has been like completely burnt through, and you leave this like insanely dry ash. So it's this like ashy dryness, which is warm and sweet and enveloping, and it goes great, great, great on summer. So please, don't be scared of the notes. Don't be scared of what Fragrantica say or what people say, because on Fragrantica, this is considered more of a colder months fragrance. Please wear this in the summer. Wear this and let it pump. Let it pump. I assure you that this is one of the better renditions of a warm fragrance out there. Do yourself a favor, get yourself at the very least a sample kit from Andy Tauer just to see what all the fuss is about. If you don't like it, hey, move on, move to something else. But at least you get to experience what everyone is talking about. At least you can get a sniff of what true love injected into fragrance is. Thanks for watching. I hope you like this feature. I'm just ecstatic to talk about Andy Tauer. I have other fragrances to come, and I even have a couple which I'll be featuring in the first impression segment. Yeah, so another one down. Thanks again, and cheers.